5 months ago, I drilled the first hole into the roof of my RV. I did this so I could mount a custom 3D printed roof rack. Yes, you heard me right. Before I show you what it looks like after 17,000 miles on the road, let's go back 5 months ago to when this crazy idea was first proposed.
First hole. Scary. To start, I wish I could tell you that I know all about 3D printing, but I don't. But luckily enough, I have a brother who knows a lot about 3D printing.
He learned a lot about the processes, hardware, and software to make what he wanted. But, like a lot of people that get into the 3D printing world, he didn't really have a project to test his knowledge and machines. That is where I come in. I was planning to be on the road for 2 years with my RV. But after packing everything into my van, I had no space to move around. Reluctantly, I gave in to the idea that I needed to put rooftop boxes on my RV.
Everything that I looked at was either not the right size for my roof or completely out of my budget. So I told my brother about my dilemma, and he suggested, why don't we 3D print that? He was talking about 3D printing a roof rack. Like you may be thinking, I was a little skeptical that 3D printing would work for this application. I had heard of 3D parts morphing with just a couple hours out in the sun, and even breaking if they were fragile.
As a reminder, we were about to put this on the top of a car. How would it handle the elements I was almost guaranteed to be driving through? I would encounter extreme heat, highway winds, torrential rain, freezing snow, and blowing sand. I needed some convincing. So we started with a test.
I want to show you how strong this is. First test. Ta-da! 200 pounds? Just fine. Okay, so now we know that it can handle my weight. Let's try something a little bit more extreme. Give it a go.
Crazy enough, this test was printed with PLA plastic. In the world of 3D printing, PLA is mostly used as a modeling plastic, not as a structural final product. We were planning to use ASA plastic, heat resistant and much stronger.
Isn't that wild? Look at that. Barely any damage. Nothing to the top, nothing to the sides. 3D printing. Who would have thought it's this strong? That's crazy. But definitely going to use it for a ski rack. I mean, box rack. Whatever.
Knowing that, I gave the thumbs up to moving forward with the multiple days and hundreds of feet of filament to make the mounts.
Well, it's supposed to take 16 hours, and that's the first layer. We'll check back in the morning. Okay, it is 7:30 the next morning. We are so many hours into this print. Look at this. I think we're at 11 hours. Still has another, 4 more to go. And not only do we have that one printing over there, but we also have this one printing inside of there too. And that's half the job. We still have to do this over again to get as many parts as we need. What? Crazy.
While the prints finished, we still needed to figure out how to mount the racks to a 1-inch aluminum square tubing on my pop-top roof.
Okay, we're on to phase 2. Got the drill back out, making a square, putting the square on the roof, and camera. Hopefully you can see that up there.
This, of course, meant drilling large holes into my perfectly waterproof roof.
Let's do it. So the scariest part of a van person's
life is drilling into their roof. And we're about to put a lot of holes in the roof. Let's hold these guys on. To continue with the 3D theme, before mounting anything, we also used the computer models to print a template that we could use to drill each of the 32 holes exactly the same.
First hole. Scary. Okay, so we've drilled a couple little pilot holes. You can maybe see them right there. But I'm about to have to put this giant thing in there. And that means having to do it with this giant drill bit. Okay, there's a problem, and it's kind of big. We need to make sure that these don't have that little bit of room in them. And that's, I don't know how to fix that.
It wasn't until we had drilled the first 2 large holes that we realized the first choice for mounting was the wrong one.
Uh-oh.
A few days later, we did find a solution.
It's this thing called riv nuts. Makes it so we can drill into a small aluminum tube without, wrecking other things. He's getting this side. I'll get the other side. Sweet.
Before mounting the riv nuts, we pumped caulking into each of the holes and then riveted the nuts into place. We also used RV tape to seal all the holes even more.
All right, this is the final stage. The roof looks clear now, but we just did all this new tape. It's looking good. Now we got to put everything on. Racks and boxes and all that good stuff. Here we go. So it's been a few more hours and it's all done. Now we get to take it out of the oven here. Here is your freshly cooked rack. Check that out. Ah! Just gotta snap off all the little pieces back there and whatnot. Oh boy, awesome.
Finally, we secured the mounts, added the boxes, and even printed more mounts for traction boards on the back.
Okay, everything is on. Got the boxes on either side, got the traction boards in the back there. Finally, we've got storage. Cool. In the end, the roof rack was a success. So much so that we went 3D printing crazy. For example, we 3D printed my keys. Instead of having 2 fobs, yeah, it's a little big, but now I got 1 fob. See my door lock? Used to be battery powered, but instead what we did, we hardwired it. And then what that made us do is 3D print this piece. And then through the whole door frame, all of the cable organizers 3D printed as well. I didn't want my Beats pill falling or rolling around while I was driving, so 3D printed a mount for that too. You shove it in, there you go, 3D printed. These switches control my Starlink, my air conditioner, my inverter, and my overhead lights. This frame, 3D printed. I've got these drapes. The drapes are held up by, you guessed it, a 3D hook and a 3D printed elasticy strap. This little knob, so I can twist up my rooftop, broke. So that right there, 3D printed. In order to dry out my Camelback, 3D printed a little hook. I also have this cool chair, and down here, in order to hold it into place, we 3D printed a little trigger there that when I'm off-roading, I can just do that 3D printed. If we go to the front of the car, I've got a switch for my brights, as well as a switch for how much power I'd like the inverter to be putting in. This plate right here, 3D printed. Underneath my steering wheel, there used to be a switch for the light bar up front, but now that we took that out, there was a giant hole. We replaced it with a fun little character. 3D printed. In order to hold my Starlink in place underneath my seat, we 3D printed these little mounts that screw directly into the car. 3D printed. Inside where all my electrics are kept, check this out. We 3D printed these little battery mounts so the battery doesn't move. Underneath the battery, there's these little feet which let the cables get organized underneath there. And also, back inside of there, that box is 3D printed, which holds all of my other connections and all that good stuff. So all my cords are organized. All of which 3D printed. If we come down to the floor, this is a channel that goes between my plumbing and over to my batteries. And this little cover here is 3D printed so you can't even see the cables. 3D printed. See those little blue caps? Those little blue caps let me keep all the hardware in place. Also 3D printed. My ladder sits on the back of the car, and we had to reprint the handle so it stayed on that little hook. 3D printed. Just in case I need to go pick up some wood or some groceries at the grocery store. This little quick disconnect, little mounts here, 3D printed. It works with this basket that goes on my roof where it holds the wood. And that basket is held on by these mounts, which mount to the roof rack. 3D printed. And last but not least, on top of the roof, I have my traction boards, and they are also held on to the roof rack with these racks. These things are like little volcanoes, which allow this handle to screw through 4 recovery boards, and the handle also 3D printed with the bolt inside. Crazy. 3D printed. So, at this point, I would argue if you can imagine a part, you can probably 3D print it. Now, an example of this is when I was in southern Colorado, a highway sign got in my way. I backed into it. And in backing into it, I broke my bumper, I messed up my exhaust pipe, and I broke my water valve. Now, being that my van is 20 years old, oh, it's more than that. Being that my van is older than 20 years, they don't make a lot of the parts for it anymore. One of those parts being the water valve. Now, I snapped off a couple things. There used to be a lock on the end of this. This hinge used to open up, and you would, of course, fill the water through there. But look at how difficult this part is. It angles down. It has all these little ridges on it. There's even a little breathy hole. And of course, we have to make this the size that a hose can fit through. And yes, it's difficult. But once again, my brother said, why don't we 3D print that? Now the new one looks like this. It matches the van better. Instead of a trap door, it's got a little screw on there. I still have a little plug in there, but there's a little hole for the lock, and then you just put it back in, twist it closed, put the lock in, good to go. So even if you have old parts that you need to replace, 3D print them. So, what does it all look like 5 months later into the journey? It looks the same. It looks totally fine. There's no color change. This is from tape, not from the mounts. If you look at the other ones, they're perfect. But there's no cracks. There's no water leaking in. There's no nothing. I am completely shocked. I definitely didn't think that 3D printing would work for a roof rack on top of an RV. But it does. If you do it right, of course. And have a really smart brother. So, if you were a skeptic before, I hope that this video explains a little bit more about how maybe you can do it the right way. And of course, if you have any questions, let me know. If you like this stuff, give me a like, give me a follow. See you out there on the road. If you want to check it out when you're out there, totally fine with that. Anyway, see you next time. Thank you.